Hi, I'm Claudia Hamilton, and this is Katya, Corinne, and Andrew, and this is our 10-year project to end homelessness in Cleveland. From the beginning of our intensive, Andrew and I made a survey at Caroline's, a questionnaire that we thought would be simple, 7 simple questions. So let's see what homeless individuals actually need and want. Question number 1. What is your number 1 priority in your life? We got a variety of answers. However, 16 of our 20 patients answered the same: finding a job. Of course, there were some who prioritized their health, their diabetes, or even their need for braces. Question number 2. Do you feel safe in your current environment? The answer for this was a majority yes, but others felt discriminated against or even robbed. Those who are defenseless must build the biggest walls. Number 3. Do you feel like your meals are nutritious? This was a mixed answer. People liked the fast service, but didn't like the lack of resources for those with diabetes. Others just learned to live with it. Question number 4. Do you have a housing plan? At the services, people seem to have the correct resources to build their own case and blueprint for a job. Most of them even had phases in their programs where they're able to work through with their case manager in order to correctly find the job that was suitable for them. Question number 5. Do you have any medical concerns? At both Westside Catholic Center and Caroline's, this is of course a reoccurring problem where medical and dental concerns need to be addressed. Fortunately, less than half the participants actually had medical or dental issues that needed to be pursued. Question number 6. Do you have a job or are in the process of finding a job? Most of the homeless individuals didn't have jobs, and some of them had to wait until they get out of the phase 3 of their shelters plans. But many of them actually considered pursuing more jobs in careers that they had gone through in the past or in their childhood. And question number 8. Are you lonely? Most of these answers were extremely yes or no, with many seeing themselves as loners their entire lives or embracing the community that they had gained over the past few years. This is where the spirituality of many of our patients showed and their beliefs in higher bows.
According to Hewed Exchange, currently there are 20% of individuals that are unsheltered, 32% of people in families that are sheltered, 36% of individuals that are sheltered, and 3% of people in families that are unsheltered. According to Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, their mission is to organize and empower homeless and at-risk men, women, and children to break the cycle of poverty through public education, advocacy, and the creation of nurturing environments. By actively listening to, mobilizing, and working with those currently experiencing homelessness, NEOC envisions a society without homelessness. This means that people experiencing homelessness should be treated with dignity and respect by the society, service providers, and the government. The homeless need better shelter standards, more county support, more accessible housing, and most importantly, more chances to have their input noticed. NEOC does this by breaking down their programming into 3 categories: organizing and empowering, educating, advocating, and creating nurturing environments. Homeless individuals get a voice from the monthly Homeless Congress so that they have a chance to speak out, publishing the Cleveland Street Chronicle and registering homeless citizens to vote. According to Ed G., the executive director of Y Haven, the 2017 funding by activity looked like this. There are 9.5% went to rapid rehousing, 25% went to shelters, and 65.5% went to permanent supportive housing, a total of $35,501,378.
In our plan for Cleveland, we have decided to give more funding to preventative systems and cut funding for shelters because they've been known to provide temporary housing rather than permanent, individualized housing. Since more funding will be spent towards preventative systems, there should be a smaller amount of people becoming homeless, meaning that you would need less funding for shelters since they won't be as filled up. Also, we would need to cut funding slightly for supportive housing, including rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing, in order to make up for the increase in funding for preventative systems. With these in mind, we have designated 71.43% of the funding, or 10 quarters, towards supportive housing, 14.262%, or 2 quarters, for shelters, and another 14.262%, or 2 quarters, towards services. To make this easier to understand, think of a sink. When you turn on the faucet, the sink fills up. When you close the drain, no water can escape. Now, imagine that the water that fills the tub is the population of homeless people in Cleveland. Here's what it looks like now. Since there's no funding towards prevention, the sink will fill quickly and infinitely with water. However, since there's lots of funding towards permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing, water, or the homeless people, are able to escape into the green zone / are permanently housed. In our method, we turn the spigot way down on the flow of homeless people into the system. By only cutting a small amount of funding from the supportive housing, we are still able to provide people housing rapidly and successfully, and won't need as much funding for shelters since they'll be more vacant. Eventually, our plan should get us to a homeless population of a functional 0.
Although there are many procedures to prevent homelessness, many services are still extensively needed in shelters and transitional/permanent homes to help those in need and get them back on their feet. According to the Cuyahoga County Homeless Services, services such as case management, job training, medical care, and helpful life skills are offered at various locations to act as beneficial resources to homeless individuals. Thankfully, many of these services are offered by third-party nonprofits around the Cleveland area. With access to the benefits of healthcare from the Cleveland Clinics to the dental and medical care of Care Alliance, the governmental coverage through programs like Medicaid and Medicare, homeless folks are able to be cared for with little to no payment. Shelters like City Mission or 2100 Lakeside have programs that are able to be from universities such as Cleveland State or Case Western for alcohol and drug treatments to employment services. According to Ed G., Executive Director of Y Haven, many of these services provided by other non-government funded organizations are not only a reflection on the good of the community, but how benefits can be provided without the use of taxes and inclusion of the government. From Project Act to Y Haven, shelters are able to provide the correct education and services that are organized from the good of the people's hearts. In the current Cleveland plan, there is little to no use of government funds into services for homeless situations and shelters. Therefore, in order to increase the need that homeless individuals most commonly said, housing, we are decreasing the use of programs provided by the government to 0% in order to show the positive outcomes that can result in the placement of housings before services. A study by Deborah Paget at New York University shows that positive outcomes can actually occur when housing comes before services. She shows that many of those placed in houses before having mental health recovery puts consumers at less of a risk for health problems, homelessness, victimization, and incarceration. Approximately 50 to 70% of persons who are homeless have a severe mental illness, also including abuse substances. Therefore, providing more funds for homes than for the programs beforehand show that homeless folks are able to want and need more than what the government supplies.
So why give supportive housing the greatest amount of money in our budget? According to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, across the nation, large cities such as Chicago, New York, and San Francisco have implemented plans of permanent supportive housing in order to reduce costs overall, and in every single city, it has been successful. That is why the current plan gives so much funding towards this as well as rapid rehousing, since it works, and we agree. We are still spending more than half of the roughly $36 million budget, but who exactly does this help? According to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, permanent supportive housing addresses the needs of people who, quote, have a disabling condition and have been continuously homeless for a year or more, or those with a disabling condition who have had 4 or more episodes of homelessness in the past 3 years, end quote. United Way stated that this group of people accounts for about 20% of Cuyahoga County's homeless population. That's a lot. Since this group of people require more resources and assistance in getting housed, we need to spend lots of money on giving them what they need. But how will we help the other 80%? Rapid rehousing. By giving homeless people homes, we will technically be able to end homelessness in Cleveland, and so far it seems to be working across the nation with only 10% of the homeless people or families going back to their homeless state, according to Urban.com. By keeping supportive housing high on our funding list, we are assuring that many homeless people will be housed efficiently.
What do we think is the best way to end homelessness? In our opinion, the best way is to keep people out of homelessness in the first place. As a result, we invest a significantly larger amount of funding towards preventative services by allocating 2/4 to it. According to NEOC, Cleveland saw 10,267 new eviction cases and had 12,658 filed with the Ohio Supreme Court in 2015. And this isn't even every eviction case, as there are informal evictions. In order to address this, we propose that funding is allocated towards legal aid to prevent evictions. According to Laura K. Abel, a consultant for the National Center for Access to Justice at Fordham University, eviction aid in Massachusetts prevented 25% of evicted individuals from entering homelessness, which alone saved $8.4 million in shelter costs. These effects are mirrored in New York, where legal aid for evictions saved $27 million in shelter costs. Abel argues that investing just $3 million in legal aid can result in saving $11.5 million in shelter costs, thus being a very cost-effective method of preventing homelessness. Finally, we also propose that Cleveland begin to use critical time intervention, aka CTI. CTI works by maintaining continuity of care by connecting an at-risk individual to necessary support systems around them while encouraging personal responsibility. The goal of CTI is to ensure vulnerable people are aware of available services, encourage use of those services, and to mediate conflicts between a support system and the individual. CTI has shown massive success with randomized trials concluding that it reduced duration of homelessness by 2/3. Even 9 months after intervention ended, a follow-up study found that individuals that participated in CTI were almost 4 times less likely to have re-entered homelessness. Using these preventative measures, we believe that we can stem the massive flow of people into the shelter system, saving resources and people from homelessness.
In our plan for Cleveland, we would reduce the percentage of money that is spent on shelters from 24.5% to 14.282%. Our main goal is to stop people from entering the shelters in the first place, which would reduce the amount of homeless individuals in them total. Instead, the diversion preventative system would be used at the front door, where they'd be encouraged to go back to housing, stay with a family or friend, rapid exit, or any other way possible. The money that was spent on shelters previously would go to other functions such as permanent supportive housing.
Social justice, a hypothesis for the end of homelessness and beginning of legal and moral justice for all. Ending homelessness could bring to life the new, true social justice definition, the free equity that everyone deserves regardless of prejudice or discrimination. And we believe that this plan could provide that to everyone, no matter their financial or social situation.